objection. Okay. Welcome, Gregson.
Thank you. Consider it done.
Yeah. So then the next item is public comment. Anybody in the audience who wants to address anything, 5-minute limits? Okay, hearing none. Next item up, number 3, is approval of the September board minutes.
I didn't see anything outside of the need to be corrected or anything last night when I looked at it, so I'll move approval.
Okay, got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Say aye. Hearing none. Motion approved. On to the report agenda. First up, financials.
Oh, Sean
you
needs
wanna
to
do
go
that?
first because, I'm sorry, he has,
I don't need to go first, but
Oh.
I just need to be somewhere else by 8:45.
Oh, good as any, so.
okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on talking for an hour or anything.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're inclined to, so.
So I think I know just about everybody here. I'm Sean Irvine, I'm the Economic Development Director for City of Independence. I was asked to come and talk a little bit about some of the work we've been doing to try to leverage MINET's capabilities into basically to help us kind of keep abreast, if not ahead of the innovation economy and a lot of the changes with broadband dependent technologies that are going on today. So I'll cover that fairly quick and be happy to answer any questions you got. Feel free to jump in, stop me, interrupt me. I'm not a techie person, so I typically don't speak too much tech talk, but if I say something that doesn't make sense or you don't understand, let me know. So you're all familiar with kind of the background of MINET, and I'm kind of running off a presentation that I gave as part of a panel at the Broadband Communities Conference a couple weeks ago. So you're all aware of kind of the history of MINET, but the one thing I want to kind of emphasize is the goal, aside from sort of the immediate need of better internet service, better cable service, better phone service, was folks recognized that the internet was going to be something important. This is back in the early 2000s, but nobody obviously could know what that was going to be. And by creating a fiber system, fiber to the home, that was essentially a way to create the opportunity for this community in the future. To ensure that whatever happened in the future with the internet, we would be up there with that, as opposed to the stereotypical fading rural community that's disappearing into the woodwork. That was really the long-term goal of developing MINET. And I think we're really starting to see those benefits. I mean, you guys are aware of some of the tangible benefits, obviously, with FCR that we're able to bring last year. The school district has obviously been engaging with some of the online testing and some of these other, the school-based health clinic with the teledentistry that's really could not happen without the fiber infrastructure. But a couple years ago, we got a grant from the state through the Federal Stimulus Act to do a broadband utilization and adoption strategic plan. Essentially, we've got this great resource. What can we do to get more people using it and get people using it more effectively? Essentially, there's using it, and then there's using the full capacities of the broadband capacities we have. One of the ideas that came out of there was this test drive idea. There's not a lot of people need a gigabit of upload-download speed right now, but there's a lot of companies out there developing these technologies that either singularly or in aggregate will require high levels of bandwidth connectivity. They're going to need a place in the real world to test it once they're done in the laboratory. So why not come to a place like Independence and Monmouth? Small communities are easy to work with, small network easy to work with, but the technology is everything that Google or anybody else can offer, and is exactly the kind of environment that these devices will need to be deployed in. So you may have heard the term the Internet of Things. That's been getting thrown around quite a bit lately. That's essentially one of the main targets that we were looking at with this. These are essentially two devices connected by the internet. This can be your phone to your garage door opener. It can be a sensor to a computer back in the office. It can be just kind of almost endless possibilities, and it's this rapidly exploding thing. You guys are probably all familiar with that. So we went out and started talking to folks to kind of to pitch this idea. We've made some progress with individual companies. We're actually, the city is starting a partnership with Mentor Graphics, which is one of the larger tech companies in Oregon. So Intel builds the silicon chips. Mentor Graphics essentially designs the chips. They do they call it the architecture of the chips. They have developed a new, I think they call it an edge node, but essentially it's a device that you've got your end gizmo, whether it's a sensor, whether it's a camera or whatever, that then needs to feed into something which then kicks it up to the internet, which kicks it back to the cloud or wherever your home system is. So this is sort of an aggregation device, for lack of a better term, that facilitates the Internet of Things. They want to deploy that in the real world and get some real world use cases. And one of the things that frankly, we're a little surprised at how interested they were in working with us, because we're just this small little town there, this giant company. But one of the things we're finding is cities in general have a lot of problems. But there are these cross-cutting problems that's what tech companies are looking for. They're looking for these sort of community scale, cross-cutting big issues that they can tackle, and if they can provide an effective solution, they can make a lot of money off of it. And I don't mean that in a bad way. And so the advantage we're seeing is now, cities have a lot of these types of problems that they're looking for. And then the extra advantage that small cities have is we're manageable. You go into a place like Portland, yeah, they've got the same problems and other problems that we don't, but it's so big it's hard to work with. But you come to Independence and you can pilot a solution very cheaply, you can operate very easily, and if you get something that you think works, then it's very scalable, because cities are very similar. And so if you've got a problem that you've solved in Independence, then you can take it up to the next step and go to Corvallis or Albany or Salem, and then take it up the next step and go to Portland. And then if that, if it's still working, then you've got a tremendous market worldwide. So there's been quite a bit of interest in that idea of let's look at this small community, because it is easy to work with, because it does have these problems that we can look at. So with Mentor, we partnered up with the Oregon State University Engineering Department. They've got a couple of senior capstone projects that they've developed with us. One of them is working with our water meter systems. The water meters, they report wirelessly, remotely. But right now, we got a receiver that goes around once a month on the street sweeper that collects the information. That's how we do the billing. We'd like to get that more frequently, and ideally be able to get it regularly enough so we can put it into an app that the residents can use to see. In a perfect world, this would be something we're collecting every 15 minutes, so they can see, okay, when and how am I using my water, and even then program it so that, hey, you're using a whole lot of water, it's 2 in the morning, are you sure you don't have a leak? And it pings your phone and says, hey, check the pipes, call somebody if you're away from home. And then on the flip side, the city would have all of that data to be able to use for infrastructure planning and management, knowing which neighborhoods are using more water, which ones are using less. We can then compare that to where our pipe systems are older or newer, sizing of pipes, and then also for targeting for water conservation. If we know one area is using more water than another, we can target water conservation promotion a little more heavily one place or another. The other one we're looking at with them is with Mentor and OSU is a kind of almost a pedestrian mapping and usage of the amphitheater. So we're using webcams to see where and how people use our amphitheater and our downtown plaza there, almost like a heat mapping type of a thing. So we can see where people enter and leave from, where they congregate, where they hang out, where they don't hang out, and that'll help us. During events, it'll help us. Where do you put fencing? Where do you put the portable toilets? Where do you do the is there a spot that everybody hangs out that we want to put, that Keystone sponsor that we want to make sure we put their sign right there? And then also, is there a place that's just not used that we should think about doing something to see if we can actually get that portion of the amphitheater used as well? And then my perfect world, I'd love to be able to see if can we see people leaving the amphitheater from an event and going into downtown businesses to really get a better idea of how those events actually impact the downtown businesses. So that's kind of an example of the test drive idea that we're tackling. One of the areas that's really caught fire is with Well, actually, I mean, smart home energy efficiency is another one that I was actually talking to Chuck Thurman about. There's a company that they're sort of creating the brain for a smart home system. They need places to deploy it. And so I was talking to Chuck about, is there an opportunity to do something, because on the power line is probably easier to work with the Pacific Power. Again, smaller groups, smaller bureaucracy. So one of the things that really kept perking people's ears up when we're talking to them was smart agriculture. We kept kind of pitching this idea about cities, and that's great, but there is quite a few places that are doing smart cities and that type of thing. But smart agriculture is an area that's really growing quickly, and there's a lot of interest in it because it really does kind of so the technology really can facilitate the work in agriculture in a lot of different ways. And especially in the case of drones, it's fairly unpopulated, so you have to worry less about unmanned vehicles and things like that crashing into other people. So one of that, and then of course, as we're talking to people, and we kept kind of throwing out ideas, and we said smart agriculture, we kind of see ears perk up. And we said, well, hey, if you're a tech company, you're looking to get involved in smart agriculture, we know a lot of farmers, we're a small community, we're an agricultural-based community, we can put you together. So we organized a meetup back in May. It was very well attended by a pretty broad range of, from farmers up to actually federal. A Wyden staff person was there, education people. I mean, it was a real good range of folks kind of talking about, what can we do to turn this place into, not just sort of Independence and Monmouth as a living laboratory, but Polk County as a living laboratory for this development of smart agriculture technologies. There's a lot of interest there, and and I apologize if I'm a little disjointed. It goes going in a lot of different directions, and it's a little too early in the morning to get my brain fully functional.
What's the internet?
Yeah. It's that thing. So one of the things we kind of have been offering to folks is, look, we can be a broker. We know a lot of farmers. We're talking to tech companies. Tech company, you want to do this. Farmer, you would like to host development of technologies. A, meet B. Here you go. The other thing that we're working on with that is hackathons and other meetups to try to just create these opportunities for those folks to get together. Because the tech companies, they don't know anything about farming. And so they've got this technology, and I think it might be useful for farming, but I need to talk to somebody who actually does know something about farming to get ideas, again, find out about these problems, find out about these issues that they're facing, that hopefully they can focus their technology to solve that. One of so I'll get back to the school district, but the school district has a 10-acre property outside of town that's got a 2-room schoolhouse on it, and it hasn't been occupied for about 10 years, but it still is a nice, good facility. In talking to them about some other things, they offered that as a potential test site for development of these technologies. And so just as an example of what's been happening, there was a company so from the meetup, one of the things that came out was there's already a lot of technologies out there collecting a lot of different data. There's smart irrigation, there's smart soil sensors, there's weather stations, there's all kinds of different things. None of them are talking to each other. So you're getting your weather report, your weather data here, you're getting your soil data here, but there's no way to put them together and do a giant analysis of them. So this company came out of that meetup and said, hey, we'd like to try to develop a solution for that, where you can have a cloud-based data platform that all of these different sensor types can all plug into the same thing. It can all be analyzed as one and visualized as one big mass. And when you say visualization, that's putting out in graphs and charts and essentially understandable as opposed to just numbers. So we connected them with the school district and the farmer who's been working the property there, and they went and deployed a bunch of different sensors out there, and then created this cloud-based data platform. And it was just kind of a pilot, hey, let's see if this works, and it worked well enough. They've actually spun off a whole new company. So the company that was named Seaborn, they've now spun off a company called Sensimo, which is they're selling a quick start package of Internet of Things solutions. So you get 5 sensors and this cloud-based data aggregation visualization platform that they created. So if you're a business or a school or a government, and you've got a problem that you want to tackle with, sensors and data analysis, they've sort of got a starter kit ready, and they will deploy it and tweak it and adjust it depending on what your problem is and what you need. And apparently the city of Portland's already bought a couple of these things to look at air pollution along transit corridors. So that's kind of the perfect example of what we were trying to do with this. And of course, the ulterior motive with all this, it's a Portland company. They're obviously not creating jobs in Independence or Monmouth or anywhere in the whole county. But by getting those folks coming down here and doing these kind of things and getting that kind of attention, we hope to get more of them. They're staying here. They're at least eating in the restaurants. Best case, we get some research stations or research outposts, or we create enough of a culture of innovation here that we start getting our own startups focusing on this stuff as well. And so, speaking to the culture of innovation, the school district has been really interested and engaged with this whole innovation piece. Early on, Intel got really interested in us because we were proposing to get students involved with some of this development of smart agriculture testing. Essentially what we're saying is, there's a lot of schools out there that have students building and deploying sensors, but they're, okay, one over there in the room and one over there in the room, and hey, it's 1 degree different from one side to the other. Isn't that interesting? We said, hey, we've got kids in our schools who are farmers or have friends who are farmers, and they know this kind of stuff, so why don't we get them actually deploying sensors in farm environments? So they're right now working in the greenhouse at the high school, and then in the future, what we want to do is get them out at this school district property or out in actual farm fields, deploying sensors, doing these different, these different data collection visualization exercises, so they can really get that real world perspective of what technology means for true real world applications. Intel was really excited about that because apparently nobody else has proposed real world application of technology in schools, and so they funded a teacher training program to get so the local teachers could learn how to better incorporate technology into their classrooms. And by technology, this is Raspberry Pi and Arduino and these little mini computer kits that you can kind of program and plug in all kinds of different sensors and gadgets and attachments to do just about anything you want. So these things are kind of the base foundation of a lot of these future that it's really amazing what you can do with these little $35 computer kits that you can take it, you get a couple of sensors, and then if you know what you're doing, you can program it to do just about any of these things we're talking about. So these students can potentially be piloting their own business solution for a problem that a farmer or a businessman has identified. To that end, the Technology Association of Oregon connected us with their Innovate Oregon program, which is a fairly new initiative to essentially teach our kids the culture of innovation. And they're focused on coding and technology because they want to train the future workforce of tech employees. But what they're doing is essentially teaching through their, they call it agile learning. In the tech companies, it's agile product development. We know we need to build a car. I don't know how to build a car. Okay, let's first focus on building the axle. Okay, this is what the axle is going to look like. Okay, now let's focus on building the wheels. Okay, this is what the wheels are going to look like. And then you just kind of do these short little sprints and solve this problem, this problem, this problem. But the whole time you're moving towards that ultimate goal that you have. And eventually you get to the point where it's okay. The last problem is assemble all the parts in a functional way. So they've created these innovation academies where you go into a class and say, okay, class, what's a problem that needs to be solved? You research the problem, you propose solutions, you research the solutions, you pick the best one, and then you prototype it. They've been very successful in a school in Portland and in Dayton, a rural school up in Yamhill County. So we brought them in and got them involved with Polk Halo. We said, okay, well, if you've done this in school, school with difficult youth, well, what about out-of-school youth with barriers to education and employment? So they said, okay, no problem. They did this 6-week program. And quick backstory, and I apologize, I'm kind of droning on here, but some of you may have been involved in the Ford leadership effort a couple years ago to create, identify a community problem. We identified volunteerism, connecting people who want to volunteer with organizations that need volunteers. Eventually, that more or less fell apart because we couldn't
How'd
come
that
up with a
work
real.
out?
We came up with a solution, which was a web-based database and all that kind of stuff was going to require a lot of maintenance and a staff person and money and it just was too much. So lo and behold, I go to the sort of the end celebration of this Innovation Academy, and these 6 youth have identified a problem in the community, which is volunteers can't connect with organizations that need volunteers, and they created a dating app that essentially, you put in your profile. Here's where I live, here's what I want to do, here's the times I'm available, all the things I'm interested in. The organizations put in, here's who we are, here's what we want to do, here's the volunteers, the types of volunteers that we need, and if there's a match, it pings your phone. It's just, I was totally blown away. And these are 6 youth that were all high school dropouts and knew nothing about computers, nothing about coding. They literally built this prototype in a week and a half of actual, they started to learn coding a week and a half before the end of the program, and they built this prototype. So now they're working on the actual one that's going to be able to be bought for, or downloaded from the App Store, so we can actually see how well it works in the community. But that's the kind of thing, that's what we're kind of incorporating at the schools now. Primarily, we're looking at right now at an after-school program, but we want to get it into the classrooms as well, because it does, you can fit this with just about any type of education. It's not just science, but it's kind of that re-shifting of, here's a problem that we need to solve. You guys, it's less about being the teacher who knows everything, who's imparting their wisdom on the students, and more about the teacher being a facilitator and helping the students learn and research and develop on their own. The school district is really jumping on board with this, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Sean, if I may, I'd like to inject one thing here for the board's knowledge, and that is last week I was able to, I had the opportunity to hook up with Rex Fuller, and just yesterday I had the opportunity to hook up with Buzz Brazo, and the purpose of those meetings, I had some off of this topic requests for Rex Fuller, but for the purpose of this meeting and what Sean is presenting, both Rex and Buzz are interested in taking this whole innovation subject to the next level jointly, how the two, not just the public schools for the 2 communities, but the local university jointly with the public schools could do this stuff together, creating mentorship programs between high school students and college students, and creating an environment where college credit is earned as a result of some of this pre-earned before ever getting to the university, as a result of doing the things that Sean's sharing with. And that's just recent knowledge, so I wanted you to be aware that we're involving both standard education and higher education in this as well.
Yeah, this really is one of these cascading things where we've been able to get a couple of interesting opportunities and get in front of the right people, and now things are really starting to roll. But and it's also it's an idea that makes sense. Like you said, Buzz and Rex are both really interested in the connection is natural. They're training teachers. This is an interesting potential way of the future of teaching kids. They've got a computer science program, they've got business programs, there's just a bunch of different potential crossovers there. And then the other cool thing about this Innovation Academy is it's a way to get the community involved. You get farmers, business people, government coming into the after-school program or the appropriate in-school class and saying, I got a problem, can you guys help me solve it? That's what a cool way to make learning real. You've got a real person from the real world saying, I've got a real problem that I can't figure out, and I'm really hoping that you guys can help me figure that out. That's really a way to get kids engaged and really, understanding the value of learning. So then, yeah, and to Buzz's interest also, that school property outside of town, he's always kind of been eyeballing that as a potential agricultural extension campus, for lack of a better term. Now we're looking at going, what about an ag tech campus? You go there in the morning, you learn your horticulture and your propagation and whatnot, And then in the afternoon, you learn your sensor development, your data analysis, your deployment and visualization and all that. And it's, I mean, there's a lot of really interesting possibilities, that come up with that. So that's the probably not so short version of what's going on, but it really is a lot. Just this is one of these situations where we're not so much leading this effort as just kind of cheerleading and saying, hey everybody, let's get on board and do some cool stuff. And anybody else who's interested in getting on board, they do. So it's if you know of anybody or have any thoughts about how to keep this going, I'd be more than happy to talk with you about it.
Great. Any questions on the board?
You sort of prefaced your remarks, which were very interesting, by the way, and for early in the morning, well put together, about ways that to leverage MINET's capabilities, and I'm not making the connection
That
with all of the things. I mean, because much of what you're talking about is outside of our footprint.
Yeah, and honestly, that's a bit of the irony about all of this, is so far we actually haven't used MINET's capabilities at all. This Internet of Things development with Mentor Graphics and OSU, that will be an internet-based activity, but we really haven't yet come across something that was I've got this gizmo that needs a gigabit of upload download speed. I am kind of starting to poke around at those possibilities, but the interesting thing is that I can still definitively say without MINET we wouldn't be doing these things today, because that's literally what's gotten me in the door with everybody. I mean, that is the first thing I say when I talk to a tech company is I'm from Independence and we've got a fiber to the home system, and they immediately go, oh, really? I didn't realize there was anywhere in Oregon that had that. And that immediately lends credibility and kind of gets their attention. But yeah, it is kind of a strange thing that I've been looking at is, we aren't so far using, really kind of developing the high bandwidth stuff we initially set out to do, but in many ways I'm actually, I think it's a more interesting path we're on right now, and I think it will eventually lead to that high bandwidth kind of original idea, but we just haven't had the right opportunity yet.
Yeah.
And like with the smart ag, several people have kind of asked me, well, you're a city guy, what are you doing talking about agriculture? And with that, it's kind of a long-term look. So for example, if we, if Polk County is a hub for development of these new smart ag technologies, people are going to come and eat in the restaurants, they're going to have to stay somewhere, and that's going to happen in this city, so that's good. The other piece is, as these technologies develop, there probably will be an opportunity for server hosting, cloud-based services that they would want in close proximity. Or for example, UAVs are a really big thing in smart ag now. Personally, I think that you're going to start seeing a lot of service companies where rather than a farmer buying a UAV like a combine or something, they'll just hire a company that, okay, I'm going to come out and fly your site once a week, and they're going to need a base of operations, which presumably, hopefully would be, our community. So that's kind of the angle that we're looking at with that.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we'll go back to our report agenda. So the portion up there is 4A is financial.
Good morning. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you guys all. This is the first time I'm giving this presentation, but thank you all for the opportunity to work for MINET. I have enjoyed this last year and a half. Look forward to enjoying a lot more years with the company. First of all, I wanted to say that I agree with Mark's assessment of the overall state of our operations. The finances are stable. Our expenses are very reasonable in my opinion, and we just need to increase the revenue. That's kind of in Don's hands, which I would also like to say I've been very impressed with all the effort he's been putting forth with trying to get new revenue into the company. The only things in the monthly financials for October, I believe you'll have a copy, that are kind of out of the ordinary, otherwise everything is pretty much status quo. Is in revenue, we had 2 transactions that were non-cash transactions. One was to transfer some funds from accounts or taxes payable because we realized we could recognize about $41,000 in revenue because we've been paying that out to third-party vendors over the last many years. So we were able to recognize that revenue. In reverse to that would be we had to write off about $27,800 in CABs, accounts receivable, because we have finally realized that there's CABs, carrier access billing. We realized that a lot of the initial amounts that were billed to the companies, they refused to pay. Late fees have been accruing on them. They refused to pay the late fees, so we've just pretty much washed that. We're down now at a reasonable amount in that AR account to where we will actually receive that. That washed out to where we actually had about an increase, that ended up resulting in about an increase of $13,000 in our revenues that wouldn't be directly related to operations. And the expense side of things, we did have one outlying expense that was cash related. We had to pay out about $15,000 to a customer who had damage to his floors, sewer from installation many years back. We compromised the sewer line.
Involving the initial network build.
Yeah, and basically it had finally come up, and they had to have that repaired, so we had to fork out about $15,000 for that. Other than that, everything is status quo, and we're pretty much stable. The only other area that I wanted to hit, if nobody has any questions on the financials for this month, does anybody have any? Is the audit. The audit has been, first year I've been able to take the lead on the audit, and I'm proud to say that it went through successfully. All the numbers are accurate in the audit, and we're just waiting to get back the final copies of it, and Tom should be able to present at the next board meeting. So if we can get that on the agenda, he's already approved for that time.
Anything for John?
Any questions?
And you'll all receive a copy ahead of that, so you'll have a
Yes.
chance to read through the audit
Definitely.
statements prior to the meeting. The only other comment I would make to what John said is that in regard to the $13,000 of net revenue recognized that has no cash basis, it also doesn't relate to the conduct of the business during the month of October. So when you look at the operating income of approximately $103,000 reported for the month, take away $13,000 because $90,000 operating income really relates to the business that was conducted during the month. And that $90,000 reported operating income related to the October business is highly comparable to prior months, and it's also really closely on track with the company's plan and budget for the year.
Before we get off financials, if I may, Chairman, and this is not a request as a result of a power struggle, this is a request simply because of clarification. Mark brought to my attention just the other day that a request was made of him to provide information and was reminded, I'm paraphrasing, but was reminded that he was responsible to the board rather than to MINET and was required to provide this information. Is that a fair statement, Mark?
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
And Mark and I, in one of our meetings subsequent to that, Mark brought that to my attention, and Mark said, you know, I really need a clarification. Do I report to MINET, meaning me, or do I report, in this case, to the ex officio board member? And I said, you deserve a clarification from the board, and I will ask for it at the next board meeting.
I think the key level is direction from the board is from the board. And if you know it came from the board, you'll know, because we'll make a decision to do that. I think functionally, I think the idea was, is when this was originally set up, was that, you know, that you'd have kind of almost like an outside perspective, you know, on the finances. That was the benefit, and so there's a direct, but then I think functionally, you know, they obviously work directly with staff. So I think from a functional standpoint, that's there, but, yeah, I'm not at a point, I guess if it's at that same level that we talked before, is if it's a simple request and something kind of basic, you know, that's fine, but anytime a board member is going to generate a whole bunch of time and energy to staff, I think that needs to go through the board.
I would agree with that. I mean, just like many issues that we've been dealing with, I think these things, particularly when it spends a lot of staff time, and they need to have a consensus, discussion, and a majority agreement. in a way.
Yeah. Anything, Aaron?
Well, and wasn't part of your question, though, that, you know, who does Mark work for, and who does he report to? I mean, to me, that's pretty clear. He reports.
I don't think we write too many checks, so.
No, and so if that helps.
Not directly, no.
If that helps in the answer, I think we're all clear on that, you know, the board doesn't employ anyone, you do, and then, you know, so whether that's a three-way.
And an example of that is how we set up our city attorney relationship. You know, the city attorney for Monmouth reports to the city council, but for all practical purposes, yeah, you go through, you know, the city manager or someone to make sure that, and it's funny, those things actually happen. I just saw a listserv discussion where a city council was, everybody on the council was calling the attorney all the time, and the bill was just, you know, going through the roof. You know, so I think we got a basic policy in place. So I think the, you know, simple requests, you know, you get the report and you have a little clarification on it. You know, that's great. But if somebody's, you know, looking for a, you know, 20-hour research project, then it needs to come to the board.
Well, thank you. I think that basically solidifies what we had assumed. Wouldn't you agree, Mark?
Yeah.
Especially with Mr. Carey's comments, so.
Would you be more comfortable, Don, if we just had a policy that any requests for financials or tech or marketing or anything go to you and not your staff? Or at least get a heads up from you?
You know, I'm not uncomfortable any longer that
Okay.
A, I need that clear directive, and B, I'm very comfortable that that type of request. My relationship with the staff that makes me look good most of the time is such that they're going to bring it to my attention. This was if I were to quote what I heard, and I'm reminding you that you work for the board, not for MINET.
This has been an ongoing issue, and it only relates to one person who's not present today. And it puts me in a somewhat uncomfortable position sometimes because I'm not given an explanation of the purpose and why I'm being on a surprise basis contacted by telephone. And that's why I'm trying to get clarification. And my hope is that with this conversation today, that clarification will be appropriately communicated to all people, so that, because it just, I mean, I have an accountability through my contractual relationship with MINET to the entire governance structure of MINET, which includes the MINET committees, the MINET board, as well as the city councils. And so, you know, I have, and in addition to that, anytime I'm contacted by any part of the governance structure out of professional and personal courtesy, I always let Don know, just like I did in this situation. But there just happens to be one individual within that entire governance structure who sometimes I believe thinks he can contact me at will for whatever reason he believes is appropriate, and it may not be communicated or as part of a discussion with this part of the governance structure, and it just puts me in an awkward position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
So, we don't have Buzz here. So, is there anything
We don't, but if it pleases the board, I have a copy of the minutes. I would be more than pleased to just kind of give you a brief overview. But on the other hand, if you want to wait, is Buzz supposed to come?
Well, I didn't even think to ask him yesterday. What we were talking about,
Okay.
in addition to the Woo relationship, was also the business plans that we were developing, that we were in conjunction with the finance committee, that we were planning to bring he's planning to bring to the board at the next.
So I guess I'll throw a question out for Mark and Don. Is something, do it quick? Is there something really ripe, or
Yes, well,
would it be
I
better to
think-
let it develop and then have the report?
I think a report would be in order only because there's a particular item that was discussed at the finance committee that the board needs to be aware of, and that relates to the discussion about how much contribution MINET's going to make to the upcoming debt service payments.
Okay. Well, I think it'd be fine to have a quick report on it.
Yeah, I won't belabor anything on it, but I'll certainly give you a brief overview.
Great.
So the finance committee did meet on November 3rd. Most of the board, except for Ben, who had a prior commitment, was in attendance. It was a good, productive meeting. I would say to the MINET board, I think the chemistry and cohesion of the finance committee is starting to solidify. It's becoming quite evident, and when I survey committee members, they're sensing that as well, which is a very positive sign. The topic of the CCG report came up. The finance committee wanted to know if the MINET management team was spending time on it. As you know, the MINET management team is currently not spending any time on that, and that is primarily the result of the fact that Don is waiting on further direction from the board in regard to what the board would or would not like to do in regard to utilizing CCG in that regard. So we just touched on that briefly.
Is that going to be covered in your report?
I had it as a conversation item on mine. Once you have the new president, vice president structure established.
Okay.
So we just kind of clarified it for the finance committee. The semi-annual debt service discussion, I didn't bring enough copies. You can pass around. We did go through that, and for some of you who may be new or not aware, I don't have enough copies. You can pass them on. I got to pull onto this one. So we went through the typical analysis, and we determined that, at the time of the requirement for the semi-annual debt service payment, we forecasted, we felt that MINET would have around $475,000 in operating cash on hand, of which we believed we needed to retain about $170,000 of that for working capital and other potential unforeseen capital expenditure requirements, and therefore resulting in approximately $300,000 of available cash to contribute towards the payments. We discussed it at length with the finance committee, and the finance committee's conclusion was that they thought that was a sound rationale, and if Buzz was here today, I know that he would tell you that that's the recommendation of the committee and they did, basically sanction management to go forward with processing the payments in that amount on the 55-45 split to both cities. So, yeah, that was that. And we're planning on doing it in a timely manner, so both city finance directors were there, and they're aware of the payments that are forthcoming.
We see no issue, John, in cutting
I'll be
checks
cutting
as
those checks
agreed.
on Monday.
Right,
So and I'll be hand delivering them Monday, so have them on Monday.
right. Okay, good. We did spend time, Don spent time in a general sense talking about potential new business programs or promotional aspects of the business outside the current business model. And we touched on some areas such as the Grand Run Tribe, providing some level of data service to them, service to the state data center, services to WU in regard to providing data service based upon recent discussions that Don had with Rex Fuller, the opportunities potentially for two federal agencies with forthcoming discussions likely in December. We touched on the purchase service model, and we also touched on meetings with the county and city of Dallas, all in the context of potential new business opportunities. And that was basically to just introduced a committee to what management was doing with the intent of that when we have a better understanding of what those opportunities may be and how they may be shaped or formed, and then can put some planning and financial modeling around it, we would then circle around and have further discussions with the finance committee on those potential opportunities before potentially bringing any or all of those to the board. We also touched quickly on aspects of whether the central school district should look into MINET for providing all voice services, and apparently there's going to be a follow-up discussion with Jason Saunders and Buzz to explore that further. We also touched on future capital requirements for the MINET business, and basically concluded that, MINET's going to need a, quote, tech refresh about every 5 to 7 to 10 years. So that was in terms of forward-looking and planning for MINET, and the fact that, as we look and plan MINET's business forward, whether it's within the current business model or expanding into other services, we need to keep our eye on the ball with respect to the fact that there is going to need to be financial requirements with that planning to refresh certain aspects of the technical infrastructure of the company. We did touch on the purchase service model. That's an agenda item on this meeting today. And then we talked about the business framework, and that meaning that we're starting to look at, the context of MINET, financially within regard to the fact that it's still, even with the debt refinancing, has, almost a $2 million annual debt service requirement. And we talked about the context of where the current business model is, both in terms from a market standpoint and financially, and the fact that, with what we're forecasting for any future incremental opportunity to penetrate and encroach the current market further with that business model, it's incumbent upon the company as we speak and in the continued near term to really focus on finding and investigating new business opportunities outside the current business model, which we're doing. And so we're starting to use that as a context for the finance committee and looking at evaluating the kind of opportunities that may or may not fit in work for MINET. So we're building a framework around it, and that's what we refer to as the business framework. So those were the basic topics that we touched on in the meeting. And again, a very good meeting, and I can say I'm very pleased with how the new finance committee is coming out of the gates. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Proceeding along, we have sales.
I'm going to start out with some programming news. NCTC, who provides most of our TV programming, is in negotiations with American Movie Classics Networks. This also is Women's Entertainment, BBC America, and Independent Film Channel. They're looking to increase the rates to us by about 300%. They're also asking us to add Sundance and BBC World News to our channel lineup and putting all these channels on expanded basic.
Jason, you need to rephrase that. They're not asking.
Well, sorry, they aren't asking, they're telling. Right now, it looks like that'd be an increase in cost of goods sold about $3,000 a month. So we've taken to social media to ask the customers how much they value those stations. What do they think? Should we keep them? Should we dump them? There's something else we can replace. Right now, it's about a 50-50 split. Some people stream it, some people do this, But we are engaging the customers, keeping them in the negotiations to let them know we're trying to do everything we can for them, which we truly are. And I think the contract is up in end of the year, right, Don?
Correct.
AMC?
End of the calendar year.
Yeah. And then we'll have a detail now, so we're giving them plenty of notice that, we may have to drop because it's just, the cost is just too much. So.
I found it important that Jason share with you that we don't just willy-nilly make a decision about adding, well, at least dropping any channels. Unlike any of our competitors, quite frankly, we do try, and with the increase in the use of social media, are succeeding in getting communication with our customers as to whether or not it's worth their dollars to continue with the program. And I thought it was particularly important for you because in a situation where we turn off a channel, okay, that's where you as our board of directors or those that are city councilors are gonna hear from our customers saying, holy cow, please shut off the wagon wheel channel, you know, and,
Or the outdoor channel.
you know, seriously, some
Yes.
damn obscure
Yeah, I
thing.
heard that.
We took the same tactic for that outdoor channel. I had probably one person complain or getting rid of it. As far as dropping channels, on our standpoint, as far as customers upset, it was pretty smooth. I know there was a person who said he's gonna go to the council meetings, and, you know, there's a few of them,
Yeah.
but, yeah.
But in communities where the citizenry, and I like it, where the citizenry is not, does not hold back contacting boards of authority or councils with their issues, we want to arm you with what we're actually doing for when you get that call. And you will. So, thank you.
Yeah, I tell the CSR, treat every customer like the mayor's best friend, because you never know. And, you know, because they're like, well, I've never worked somewhere where they, you know, they complain to the mayor. I'm like, it's a small town, that's why we're here, so, yeah. Outdoor channel, was someone upset about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few, but for the most part, I don't think we've lost any customers because of it. In marketing news, at the beginning of the year, we developed this list of things we'd like to accomplish this year in marketing. I've gone through and just looked through it and updated to show you what we've completed, what we haven't completed, and what's ongoing. So we're going to go ahead and take one and pass along. Should be pretty self-explanatory, but as you can see, most of the things we wanted to accomplish have been completed. Some of the big ones were obviously the website, the Lucky 100 program, social media focus. The ones that haven't been completed, I think the Provide a Hackathon, Sean provided that earlier, that's still ongoing, it's just the format has changed. Is that correct, Marilyn? Hackathons, once again, for community and social opportunities. Business affiliate programs. We were hoping for businesses to help us resell. That hasn't really taken off yet. We're still working on it, but it's not dead yet. It just hasn't been completed. It's not really, it's kind of in a hold right now. Any questions about any of these?
If I can just explain on that, we do have one who's reselling for us.
We do, yes, we do.
And the business program going on right now is thank you to businesses for being a customer and giving them some free advertising on our reader board and
I did the community magazine.
and the community magazine, yes.
I'm not clear on the layout of this.
Okay, so it's by demographic, basically, and the marketing practice for that demographic.
Okay.
That make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it will as soon as I.
This is coordinated with the PowerPoint that the board got earlier in the year with marketing strategies.
Yeah.
And your legend is to the right, John.
Yeah, I got that. I just didn't quite understand the ranking.
Yeah, it's by demographic.
You know, one of the things that I've had just sort of offline conversations randomly with a few, but one of the things that I think ought to be addressed or considered by the marketing group, marketing committee, is the sort of the quality of the MINET spots that appear on, you know, on the various channels. And I know there's because it doesn't reflect in my opinion, for the most part, doesn't reflect the technical capabilities that we like to think we have.
Okay.
I know there's a thought, and it's been noted that why are we advertising to our own customers? I understand that concept.
Right.
There's a major ad campaign running right now by GE. GE is not trying to sell anybody anything with those ads, because they don't sell to the people who watch TV like me. They're building brand identity, and they're reshaping the old manufacturing GE to the new tech GE.
Right.
And so that's a brand development advertisement. And as we've talked ad nauseum in here, we get bombarded, those of us in the MINET footprint,
Right.
get bombarded either electronically or through the mail
Yes.
with the other big boys that have got the money to do the slick Madison Avenue type brand development. And so the degree to which we can ramp up our brand development in a sophisticated manner without, breaking the bank. And I don't know that it's not so much cost driven as production and concept. And that's not my area, so I'm a little deep water here. But I just know what my perceptions are, and I'm guessing that they're not unique.
Is this focused on one thing, i.e. commercials, flyers? Is there?
Particularly the commercial piece, the online piece.
Okay.
I mean, the visual quality doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't seem to, if it's I've got a high def deal, like a lot, and it doesn't seem to be coming through as that. It's a one camera VHS look is what it looks like,
Okay.
frankly,
Okay.
in some instances.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we'll definitely look into that.
I don't know, and if I'm the only one that has that sense,
No, I've heard that before.
then
Yeah.
fine, but I do feel, and it pops up every time there's one of these brand development programs that's going on, and GE is and I guarantee you can't watch television without seeing something about GE and about how high tech they are, and you don't need the steel hammer anymore.
I still want that guy to pick that hammer up.
I know, he can't pick that up.
Yeah, and that's actually, some of the competitors are taking that same approach with their commercials. It's not about really what they're selling.
Right.
But, yeah.
And especially in our case where we're basically working on a closed loop. We are talking to our own people. But, and I've used this example, years ago, the railroad industry went on a big deal, a big railroad, we can handle it. You remember that program?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, well, that had nothing to do with people that were shipping, it had everything to do with people inside the company. And so, I don't know, those are just my comments.
No, excellent, yeah, and I'll definitely take that into consideration and look at that and see if we can do that. Brand identity is a huge thing.
Yeah.
I think Dawn and I had this conversation when we first started. You identify companies with colors or logos, or, and after a while you see that logo, that's what they stand for. And we're probably at a time where we need to be like that.
Well, I just ask you to take a review of what our visual, on, our cable television, I guess, and that's what we're doing primarily. Does the quality of those pieces reflect what we think we have to sell?
Excellent point.
It's 8:29, and if we're gonna do a executive session,
I was
I have to rush, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I was hoping if we could, if we can get done with this report and then at least Brian's, kind of get those cleared out.
we don't have a phone yet.
Brian's won't be a short one.
Oh, okay, so then maybe we need to wait, and we don't have a phone, and the person who's gonna do the phone isn't here, so we might be doing it on a cell phone. Yeah. So we'll be high-end here at MINET.
So wrap it up,
All right.
Saunders.
All right, to the numbers. So these are pretty self-explanatory. Hopefully, I'll go through them. The first one, this one, is the one I've been reporting usual. It's sales per service. For the month, we gained 66 services. And this is a month we're up in everything. We gained in every service. Like I said, I'll rush through this. Any questions on that one? Okay. And then we have a graph detailing the same thing. And the projections are taken off past years. This is usually the curves we see in past years. This year you can tell we really stayed stable. We didn't have the big drop off we thought we would. So that was really encouraging. Next graph is again, just same thing, different graph. Everyone looks at graphs differently, so I'm trying to get it covered for everybody.
Is there a segment of our market that seems to be responding to this more than others, or is it pretty diverse? Can you tell?
As far as?
Like students?
Yeah, I mean, the students, what we did is, and I've been saying this for the past year, retention. Next year, we truly will be a retention company. And Don, I think, is going to get this in his report. We're pretty highly penetrated in the area. So with retention also comes, the revenue's not as great with retention, because basically you're keeping the same customer for a little bit less. So, but we're still getting new sales, as you can see. So that does help. The students, we're actually seeing a lot of people come from CenturyLink. They're finally saying, hey, we're paying this much for a phone line. We notice you've got these offers, Silver Surfer promo, which is the 40 meg and the phone in there, $10. So we are getting a lot of those.
So people are paying attention to how we're marketing. I mean, it's just taking time for them to do the comparison.
You know, we're not a huge company.
Right.
So, you know, I come from Comcast, where you grab 1,000 customers in a month. We just, at our penetration rates and how small we are, we just can't have those huge gains in a month. I mean, the school rush is usually 200, 300 gains, and that's our big one for the month, for the year, I should say, so.
Well, I think a good example would be that, how many responses did we have on the channel issue that you were talking about earlier?
Well, yeah, as of last night, it's up to, I think, 18
18
responses.
total?
Yeah.
Okay. That's not a good example, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Gary.
The last one, service disconnects. This one, John and I talked about a while back. I've changed a little bit to show the percentage of the disconnects, and I also broke down what services are disconnected. So you can see that 22 internet customers disconnected because they're moving out of area. As you can see, as far as the competition, we didn't lose a whole lot. The 2 to CenturyLink, I know the 2 customers, they were non-pay customers who just finally got fed up with everything and left.
Having to pay their bill.
Yeah,
That
that seems to be
pesky
difficult,
bill.
yeah. But once again, moving out of the area is a big one. Non-pay is another one. Non-pay is kind of different, where we have customers who non-pay every month and come back to us. What, you have a percentage, John?
Every month.
What did you say the percentage was?
I'd say probably 80% of our non-pays do it every month.
And we lose them, they
Every
come
month.
back. Yesterday was non-pay day, and the office is flooded with people again, so. Nature of the beast, I guess. Otherwise, everything, you know, money, price, the competitors, porting out to sell company, there's no way we're gonna prevent that. I mean, there's just, you know. Any questions on this?
I really like this, I think.
Is that getting to where,
data.
yeah.
It's really good data, I think, and it's helpful for me.
Yeah, John actually, him and I had a long conversation, and we came up with this, and developed it, and I think it's getting to where we want it, right, John?
Yeah, absolutely.
So. Any questions?
Last one, and I know we're
Yep,
trying
yep.
trying to move. One of the things you said that you're sort of working with a lot of customers on, relative to the channel thing and all of that, on social media. Any idea of what percentage of our customers are on quote-unquote social media? So how many people are we really talking to when we're talking now?
I can get those numbers. I don't have them. I know Rod's here somewhere. He can also give you those numbers too. What I do with these posts, I boost them. When I boost the posts on Facebook, essentially it reaches out everybody in the area to see it on their page, to react to it. So I'm going outside of our customer base to do that. As far as numbers, I think, Rod, do you have any estimate or?
Yesterday it was 1,049.
There you go.
But those are not all our customers.
Actually, the ones that I went through were,
Oh.
So that's about 25%.
Yeah. And you know, because I didn't know, and I'm not one of them, and if there's a way to get the word out that those that are on, I mean, sort of on social media, if they can make sure they somehow connect with MINET or friend or whatever you do, they can participate in those kind of things, because I guess I was unaware.
Yeah, it's on the website, and the website doesn't get a lot of response.
Yeah.
I mean, it's usually social media where you get the more passionate responses, I say.
Sure.
The websites, people just look for information, they don't really respond a whole lot.
Right, but my point is let people know to connect with you on social media so you can participate in some of these other conversations.
I did see a post where a customer tagged, which I meant they called out another customer, a friend of theirs, to respond to it.
Yeah.
So it's being shared, yeah. I mean, we just want to, when we make a decision, we want to let the customers know. We've listened to them, we've done what we thought was best for the customer. I mean, the financial situation, you know, I'm sure they wouldn't be happy us raising their bill to keep, you know, one channel, but. Anything else? Okay, quick enough, Dawn? All right.
Okay.
Scott,
Yeah.
there's the blurb if you need it.
Oh, cool, thanks.
Do you have a phone?
Yeah, we have no phones, so it'll be high tech. So we're going to move into executive session. MINET Board will now meet in executive session for the purpose of considering information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. Session is held pursuant to ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub F. All guests are asked to leave the room. Press may stay but may not report anything discussed beyond stating the occurrence of an executive session.
Okay, you ready for a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, I move that we take no further action on the matters discussed in executive session.
Okay, we have a second. A second, Jerry. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Let's move along.
Let's get back to business.
What do you want to do, Don? Do you want us to go back to Brian?
Yeah, he's gonna be the time consumer, and I'm gonna keep mine as tight and short as possible.
Yeah, oh, and maybe let's just do a time check real quick.
It's 9 o'clock.
Yeah, we're 9 o'clock. We typically try to shoot for 9:30. I'm guessing that would be challenging today?
That would,
Yeah, because of Sean's presentation.
Yeah. Is everybody open to go a little more?
I can.
I'd like to make shoot for like no more than 10. Does that work? Okay, so let's be efficient, but got a
Talk fast, Brian.
little bit in next room.
Well, I've met most of you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brian Thurman. I'm the IT director of MINETFiber. For the last 2 months, MINET has been in a remediation project to revamp its core servers, and I'd like to give you an update on where we're at with those activities and a few other items going on within the IT department. First topic I'd like to touch base on is the new servers. I know for the last few weeks there have been quite a few complaints on the email system. I have directed the CSRs to personally direct any major complaints to me directly. Over the last 2 weeks, I've taken it upon myself to personally visit or speak with at least 24 people on this issue and assure them that we are in the process of remediation. We're close to being done. I've also personally looked at their computers, looked at their systems, and actually got them back online to make sure that they're running. We just didn't call and say, hey, we're getting there. We actually got them a solution temporarily to keep them online. I am happy to announce that all the new core servers are done. They are up, they are operating, and we will be releasing them to the public over the next 2 to 3 days. We've been running tests for the last week and a half with small accounts just to make sure we have our tuning in place, security all set. I'm happy to announce that the staff has done a great job over the last 2 months and they are ready to go online. These units will serve MINET for at least the next 5 to 7 years. Proud of the staff. I know there's been some issues with residents and things. I want you to understand and know that these are subsiding. They will be done by the end of next week. We have built a very good failover system which was not present before. We have outstanding backup systems that we are putting in place, and we are in the process of training the staff to operate those systems. Just quick bullet points, the new infrastructure is installed, the base services are active and running. All our ETL programs are in progress, which is basically extracting data from the old systems, translating them to the new systems, and then loading them back up on those new systems. One of the issues we've had is many of these systems have not been updated in several years, the older computers. The data that resides on them is not compatible with our new stuff. Basically, it would be like you going from Windows 1 to Windows 10 in one leap. It's not physically possible. So we've had to create custom programs to pull that data out and then reconfigure it to work with the new systems. And we are on our very last machine today, and that data is actually being extracted as I speak now. The security management systems, which I've been concentrating on very heavily, are now in place, fully operational, and they're solid. We have brought in 2 outside companies, Dell in particular we have been working with, and we have had them validate our settings and verify that that system is ready to go and be released to the public, and they are very satisfied, as well as I, that our security needs are being taken care of and in place at this time. Fault tolerance and failover has been another issue with MINET over the years. We have purposely designed the system with multiple failover and fault tolerant capability. From this point forward, a hard drive or a computer going down is not going to turn off MINET services, which has been an issue in the past. The new email filter and antivirus systems. One of the things that MINET had done in the past is actually bought separate devices to handle this. We've actually purchased security devices where this is integrated. This is actually going to save us about $6,000 to $7,000 a month in licensing for those anti-spam and antivirus features, because it is built into our system now, and that is part of the pricing that we receive. We also receive free updates for the next 3 years on those systems at no extra charge. A couple of the issues that I want to discuss, as before, many of the systems, old systems, are operating at less than 100%. A lot of the data could not be extracted during normal business hours, which was some of the delay. I would have to wait until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, because when I went to extract the data, I was actually bringing those servers down. I will admit I am the fault for killing the mail server for at least 2 or 3 times over the past 2 months, and for that I apologize, but it was not done on purpose. It was to find out what we could and could not do with that system. One of the items that I was most concerned about is the storage vaults that were used for off-site storage with the City of Independence. These were put in place so that MINET had some place to store their data outside of that data center in the event of a natural catastrophe. Those units were retrieved from the city, and when those units were scanned, it was found that they were actually blank. The units had been previously reset to factory. I cannot tell you when, because that information has been wiped. What I can tell you is that those units are blank, and we were unable to recover any data from MINET. As far as I can tell, there were no successful backups to that system beyond 2012. One of the things, the other issue we have is in 2012, previous IT management was notified that those units were reaching end of life. Apparently, there was no contact between MINET and that company. That company will no longer support those units, so as such, we cannot put them back in place and back online. What I have done is sourced new units to replace those. The nice thing is we can actually use the data storage drives out of those defunctional units and put them in the new one. We can actually refurbish them and put them in. We do not have to throw away those drives. Nice thing is that reduces our cost of replacing these backup units from $7,000 down to $3,100. So that's a significant savings. The NetApp units originally, when they were purchased a few years back, were $14,000 a piece. So we're actually increasing our capability and capacity and can expand that capacity for $3,100.
I'm going to inject here, because if I were on the board, I'd be seeing some dollar signs heading out the door as a result of backup servers. John and Brian, and John Cooper and Brian and I, and then I had Mark validate John's calculations. It looks like even with this setback, because of the pricing that we've been able to achieve and the use of the drives out of the previous system, we're still, I mean, just ever so barely, but we're still within budget across the last 2 fiscal years that the board has approved. But we don't have any more fudge left.
Let's back up a notch.
Yes, sir.
So data backup, disaster recovery, so if something would have happened during that period and there's nothing on the devices, then one always jumps out at me, just customer information. So we would have lost all our account information.
Between the time period that we put the temporary backup systems in, yes, MINET was running without any backup, and if there had been a major failure, that information would have been lost.
That's one of the ones that we, cities have to keep to because of our utility system and everything. So what are we doing right now?
Right now, we have actually brought temporary backup units in. They've actually been in place for the last 2.5 months to give us storage capability, and that's where we're backing up the old systems, and we're putting new systems online right now for the brand new core servers.
Then are we going to find an offsite somewhere too?
Yes, sir. We've actually, working with Strataverse, we've already made arrangements that we have access to their entire data center up in Portland, so we can offsite our data for us.
Good.
Okay, real quick on this, the recommendations that I'm currently making at this time, I would like to install 2 of the ThecSN 16000 Pro. These are RAID array backup units for the new core servers. They will also manage and back up the entire LAN system, all of our edge devices, core routers as well. These are the units that we're basically picking up for $3,100 a piece. We can do it with 1 unit right now, but I would really like to have 2 because I do prefer to have some sort of failover internally. The other item, I want to utilize the drives from the old NetApp units for the N16000. Like I said, that'll drive our cost down around $3,000, a little bit over than that. One of the other items, implement and train IT staff on the new disaster recovery programs. Those programs have been written up, and Dawn and I are currently working now to implement those programs to bring the entire staff up to snuff with the new systems. The other item I'd like to touch on is MINET's current master services agreement was really geared toward residential clients. There was not a really good, robust commercial master services agreement. Dawn and I have sat down, we have developed that master services agreement. We've also developed a new access policy for employees. These 2 policies are more in line with today's current standards. They also help MINET in covering its back when it comes to offering services. Some of the old MSA, there are items left out that I would consider to be covered as far as throughput, bandwidth, what we guarantee for uptime. All of those have now been recorded and noted and are in the new commercial MSA, and I would ask that there be a review and we get that in place as soon as possible. The reason being is I have contacted several companies that I've worked with before, and we already have clients ready to come in for hosting and email services, and we'd like to get that started as soon as possible. The next subject I'd like to touch on is money. When I came to MINET, I gave Dawn a number that I would try to keep things under and within, and I feel that we have kept that at that point, and I'm very proud of that. But I wanted to go over some of the reasons of how we've managed to do that and some of the things that we've managed to cut costs within the MINET IT department itself. The core servers, when we originally started looking at them and some quotes that had come in were upwards of $75,000 to $100,000 to put enough servers in to replace our current blades. We've actually managed to do that entire replacement for about $25,000, a few dollars over, but we brought it in at that price, and they are installed and up and running at that price. MINET took advantage of being classified as an OE original equipment manufacturer. We managed to get that designation in, and we were taking advantage of several government programs within these vendors that they have that weren't previously being taken care of or utilized. The new switches that we put in, these are basically the devices that route the traffic throughout our network and to our clients. They basically are the traffic cops. We actually received a cost-saving reduction of $15,000 on the 4 major core switches that we needed to replace. very proud of that one. We worked with the company directly, and they feel that MINET is an outstanding opportunity, and they actually want to work with us and possibly partner with us in the future for any business that we might need down the road. Utilizing open source software instead of off-the-shelf software, so going with Linux operating systems as opposed to Windows. We've basically saved about $13,000 by going with the operating systems that we are and not going with a standard Windows package and all those supporting services. We lose no capabilities, and in fact, we gain capabilities, and the system is much more secure. The other issue we had, when our clients get internet service from us, MINET issues a router to them or leases a router to them. Obviously, over 1, 2, 3 years that these routers are out there, they need to be updated. We recently came across an article and we realized our routers needed to be updated to a new firmware package. The issue is we have 1,500 of these routers out there approximately. Sending somebody out to 1,500 homes and arranging 1,500 appointments is not cost effective. The other option would be to bring those routers in and replace them with another router that would last us another 2 to 3 years, but you're looking in excess of $54,000 to replace those units. The IT department sat down and we actually developed an in-house program for less than $2,000 that will allow our techs, while they are in the field, to update those routers on the fly. We will also be able to update those routers directly from the data centers for the ones that we don't do out in the field. This is the best way to get these updated, and these will keep these routers relevant to our clients and our subscribers for the next 2 to 3 years before the next technology lead comes in. Analysis for pay for support services. This is one where I felt MINET was really getting dinged. On average, MINET was paying roughly $40,000 a year between 4 or 5 vendors for technical support services, but those services were only being utilized 1 to 2 times a year for major problems. MINET's tech staff is knowledgeable enough to handle these old systems without that cost. It is not a benefit at this time. I've spoken with these companies and asked them to switch us over to a pay-per-incident use, and they have absolutely refused. In fact, one company actually told me, we will do that for you if you pay us $25,000, $400 an hour, and then we also have a cap of about $1,400 for every phone call you make to us. Well, that's even more expensive than what we were paying under the contract. I've made my recommendations, and I'm recommending that these contracts not be renewed. They will not be required by MINET by the end of the year. New security hardware and platforms that were put in place to cover these servers. We saved $4,000 approximately through Dell on that. Dell was interested in becoming a partner with us, so we took advantage of that, and we saved $4,000 putting that system in. And not only does it meet our current needs, it will actually move forward as we decide to move forward with our DPON or GPON technology. It is already rated to work with those systems. So we will not have to replace that in a year or two when we decide to change those technologies or layouts. Now, the biggest one, I did an analysis of the MINET cable boxes, hardware, and systems like that. Last year, MINET recycled just over 200 of these boxes. These were considered boxes not fixable, not being able to put back into service.
When he says recycled, we took it to a recycling center and threw it away, in layman's terms.
So in 13 months, MINET basically threw away 200 cable boxes. I immediately put a stop to this practice. What I've done is put into place that any cable box that comes in that is considered not functioning will be thoroughly tested based on a set of standard operating procedures that I've put together that were not present at MINET before. In other words, we're going to rebuild these boxes on site. The reason for doing this is that last year MINET was paying $500 per box to replace a box. Now, if we replaced all 200 boxes or had to, you're looking at $70,000 worth of hardware replacements. That, to me, is utterly unacceptable at MINET's point in time in its life. So we decided I made a few phone calls to some former suppliers that I had used and brought on board to MINET, and we can now actually buy those boxes at $200 as opposed to $500. But that will only be if that box cannot be rebuilt on site. The money that we are going to save over this is huge over the next few years. And the nice thing is as we move into the newer system, we can start phasing these $500 boxes out, and we will not need them anymore. I'm especially proud of this one. That is just a huge amount of savings that MINET is going to see over the next few years.
How's it going to shift over time? Because we're always talking old cable boxes, now we're going to new cable boxes.
Well, believe it or not, an old cable box is still relevant from 3 years ago because we can simply update the firmware or update the licensing capabilities. So rather than getting rid of that box, we need to start doing that. It just makes sense. Now, the new boxes that we're putting in are for the Conklin system, and those are in beta right now. So we have to maintain these SA boxes right now. Recommendations, continue the current cost analysis within the IT department so that we can further identify expense reduction sources and provide better transparent accountability. I want to expand the in-house refurbishment program to include other programs just besides the TV boxes, and I believe there are several programs that could benefit from this, the routers being one of them. I would like to continue seeking price-friendly vendors and suppliers that are aligned with MINET's cost and reduction programs while we remove and eliminate those that are not. Next up topic is training programs. MINET staff are very good at maintaining the systems that they have been for the last few years, but their training stops at that point because there has not been any need for them to go any further. Now they're in. Don and I have sat down, we have come up with a project training program plan, and Marilyn has copies of all of these, and you guys are welcome to review them as you see fit. Basically, we set this up. It is a document that outlines how the training programs are developed, who's responsible for those programs, and how those programs are delivered to our employees. They will also track how the employee is handling that program, how their progress is, and what the results of those programs are. Management needs to have the ability to take an account and an assessment of whether or not those training programs are working and whether they should be continued developed or ceased. The other thing that we are doing is we are making sure that our boys get certified. My goal is to have all outside technicians MCP certified by the end of next year. Currently, we have our systems admin in training programs that will actually certify them based on CompTIA results. It will take about 8 to 12 months for this gentleman to complete that training, but when he's done, he will be certified and capable of walking into MINET's data center and running any task that he needs to. We have offered to our tech staff and our field staff that same opportunity. If you want to train and advance your career, MINET will provide you with that opportunity. Our goal is to retain these current gentlemen, keep them on board, and bring them up to speed and have them for the long term. They will then be used to train future people who come down the line.
I think you all understand how critically important that is to us where we live. That we can keep well-trained people on staff.
One big thing is competency does require more than just possession of the workplace knowledge and skills. We need to give them the ability to demonstrate those capabilities. I've broken the training down into 4 sections. Each section represents 25% of that total goal of training. After each section, they will be rated, reviewed, and management will be talked with, and we will analyze how that person is doing, and we will adjust their training accordingly. When they finish up that 100%, they will be certified, and it will be a recognized certification from an issuing authority, whether it be CompTIA, a college, or something else. We will also work with them and do pre-training interviews, so if they already have some college courses and things like that, we can take those and we can have those applied to their training. We want to make sure anything they have or currently receive is applied to that training, and they're not starting from scratch if it's not required. The next thing I'd like to touch on is how do we make MINET Data Center a profit center? I've heard lots of ideas here today, but I'm going to really concentrate on what the IT department can do and MINET in and of itself can do as a whole. Currently, with the new setup that we're getting into MINET needs to transfer itself into an enterprise class data center. In order to compete at a regional level, which would be statewide, Washington, California, Idaho, MINET needs to develop a decent SaaS and PaaS program, and these are software as a service, platform as a service, Basically, if somebody needs a domain controller, firewalls, managed services, MINET needs to position itself to be able to handle those services. We are well on the way to doing that. Currently, you're looking at about $66 billion per year that is spent in the IT industry on managed services and data storage services. That is a huge number. If MINET got even 1% of that, I think it would make MINET pretty profitable, and we are gearing ourselves and aligning ourselves with industry people and executives to make that happen. Plans are currently in development also to increase MINET's storage and services capability. Now, while we currently have 100 terabytes of data storage, and that is good, it is actually small potatoes when you consider the Googles, Amazons, Nikes, Intels of the world. Now, while MINET probably will not get to that size in the near future, we do have to be able to compete with them at some level. Within the next 6 months, my goal is to decrease the storage capacity of MINET data centers to 1.5 petabytes of data storage. 6 months after that, I would like to be at 2.5 petabytes. And to give you some idea of that capability, that's 1,000 terabytes per petabyte. So quite literally, we could stuff probably half the state of Oregon into that storage system if it was compressed properly and stored securely. One of the things that we're also going to do is offer something that there's not too many ISPs doing, is encrypted storage. We want to offer systems and levels that are not offered by any ISP currently in the United States. That technology is available, and MINET has access to that technology, and we'll be working over the next 3 to 4 months to work and see about integrating that technology into that data center. The other thing is MINET has provision servers to begin offering web hosting and support services. This is something that MINET did offer temporarily, but those services were suspended. I do not know why, but we are bringing those services back. We already have 9 people or companies willing to utilize those services right now. While that may not be a lot, it is better than what MINET has had over the last 4 years. The goal is to utilize these services. We can host anybody anywhere in the world. They do not have to be in the state of Oregon. They do not have to be in the United States. If we have a client that's over in Asia, we can host their site for them securely. If they're in England, it does not matter. MINET has that capability. We need to take advantage of it. And while I don't see us going overseas anytime soon, there is no need we can't hit the regional area, or at least the entire Pacific Northwest, including California and Nevada, advertising these services immediately. There are several free blogs and areas that MINET could put its word out that it's offering these services, and it would probably be surprised at the responses that it gets in return. We need to take advantage of those. Another area that we're getting into, MINET wants to offer security and performance technologies over the next 3 months not currently available. I've actually spoken with several business owners in this area and outside of this area. They are very interested in having managed security services, and these are things that MINET can offer without requiring somebody to stand there and sit in front of a camera monitoring it. A lot of businesses are moving to the untraditional monitor alarm system. Rather than going with the ADTs and Brinkses and these other companies, there are a lot of companies coming out with systems that are self-monitored. They're monitored by computers. They still will call 911 for an owner, but they don't have the costs and the licensing fees associated with them. After speaking with these gentlemen, I believe it is an area that MINET needs to look into. Basically, for each of our customers, we can go in and setting up, say, a half a dozen cameras and 5 sensors. For about $280, we can set that client up with a self-monitored alarm system. MINET could actually monitor those systems, filter them, and feed that information to the client via his phone, computer, or any other device that he chooses. And MINET can charge for those services. And I think it's something that we need to absolutely jump into. I'm currently working with a business owner here. If it does work out that he wants to bring this in, I would like to use him as a pilot project, and then possibly see if he'd be willing to allow other business owners to come in and see what we've done with that and use it as an example. I think it gives the local business owners somebody that they can relate to, and they can actually see what's going on in their own town, what MINET is doing. The other thing, I've been recently working with colleagues that I used to know back in the business with the music industry. And while I know this is not a huge, major, important one, it is a revenue stream, and it goes along lines to doing things for our subscribers. Without them, there would not be a MINET at this point. Currently, what I've done is I've started negotiations with all the major record companies and their data centers. The original goal was to get those data centers to utilize MINET's data storage capabilities for some of their off-site requirements. What we ended up actually doing was creating MyMusic. MINET will now have access to over 44 million DRM-free tracks for its subscribers at a price that you would pay with any of the big subscribers, anywhere from 99 cents to $1.29. The thing is these are much higher quality tracks, and the nice thing is these are all the artists that the major sites have, whether it's iTunes, Pandora, or anybody else. We have access to that data center now, and that needs to be integrated in as a service for our clients. The nice thing is we make 20 to 52% of every single track sold. Basically, MINET does nothing. We set this website up, the clients will go out, download their music, pay for it, and then whatever our percentage is automatically transferred by those record companies into MINET's bank account. We do not have to worry about credit cards. We do not have to worry about setting that system up. Here's the nice thing. To set this entire system up is free. The record companies are not billing MINET for any licensing fees or anything else. Our only cost will be the cost it takes my web guy to sit down and spend the 2 days to get the interface set up on the website. From that point forward, MINET can start collecting revenue from those services. I also think it would be a nice thing to show the subscribers that we are trying to meet some of their needs, and we can do the same thing that the big boys can do for the exact same cost at a much lesser cost to MINET itself, period. I need to drive our subscribers to our website. That is our bread and butter. That is where we deliver our services. We don't deliver them through Facebook. We don't deliver them through Twitter. The more we keep our clients on our website, the better it is for our rankings within the IT community, and the better MINET's going to get known. Companies take notice when they see a jump in traffic to a website of 30 to 40%. MINET will see that kind of increase. I have no doubt when these new services come online. We need to prepare to meet those services, provide them securely, and if our clients come up with something else that they would like to see, MINET needs to take that seriously into account and see if that's a service that we need to offer. The nice thing is, a lot of this can be done in-house now. We do not have to go to outside vendors, and that has been one of my goals from the get-go. Now, one of the things I just want to briefly touch on is disposal of systems. Because there was no real plan in place for recycling, Don and I sat down and we actually came up with a process and procedure that is required on every piece of equipment now, whether it is a wireless card, it is a server, or it is a printer. They will go through that particular list, and based on that determination, then Don will have all the information he needs to say, okay, let's decommission this piece of equipment, let's resell this piece of equipment, or let's rebuild it and put it back online. This will give management absolute clarity into what he has in his data center and what he doesn't have in his data center, and that has been an issue up to this point for management, and we are fixing that. Now I'd like to talk about the old Blade system. While we still are utilizing it for some auxiliary services.
Brian, you might want to mention that that's the Sun server system.
Yes, the Sun servers, the ones, yes. I have received a few inquiries as to purchasing that system. I will be honest with you, I am not satisfied with the bids that I have received. Based on my professional knowledge and my ability, the best bid we've received so far was $20,000. I am unwilling to allow these systems go for less than $50,000 to $60,000. Now, I know that's significantly less than what MINET paid when these were initially installed, but we have to look at hardware attrition rates, technology advancements, and where can these systems be put in place. As a whole, these systems are worth more to us than if they are separated and broken down in parts, which is what a lot of companies want to do. In fact, I had one company, their offer was, we'll come and haul it off for you. Unacceptable at this point. So I think MINET needs to stand fast, and we will get that person that comes in and is willing to meet the price that we are currently asking for those Blade systems. In the meantime, we keep them running, we keep them looped out, but we take them out of service and store them off to the side. I cannot see recycling or get rid of these things. Few concerns moving forward. There's still much to accomplish. I don't want the focus on the core servers for the subscribers to take away from the other items that were listed in the report that MINET received from Strataverse. There are still several things that are being taken care of. They are in process, and we're doing as much of this in concert with everything else as we can. Some things we have to tackle on an individual basis due to their complexity. Others we can do in conjunction with them. My goal is to have the entire data center and LAN system refurbished and reconditioned by the end of January. Now, we will bring the new servers online immediately for the subscribers, and those will be taken care of. But it is going to take a couple of months to finish getting these other systems online. And that includes new training programs, sitting down and going over new security processes, procedures, going through all these individual systems one last time, making sure we haven't missed anything, and that they're all set up and locked up. We are replacing the domain controller for the network, but we already have a machine that is being repurposed for that. It is perfect for what we need, and it will be refunctioned for that. That saves us approximately $10,000 on buying a new machine for a domain controller. As MINET expands into a regional provider area, personnel are going to be required, highly trained personnel. We cannot add the capabilities that we want and expect that we can handle that with our current complement of individuals. Over the next 12 to 16 months, I would like to at least have it budgeted for at least one more high-level MCSE qualified person. Within 24 months, I see us requiring to add close to 3 other people if our plans of getting this expansion into the data center goes the way we would like. Other than that, I think that size of a staff with the current people we have and getting them trained and making sure they're qualified, I think will support MINET for several years to come. And many of these individuals are young. I've spoken with them. These are not individuals that are looking for a temporary job. These are guys that want to stick with this for a long time, and we want to make sure that they stick with us for that length of period. As I've told Marilyn and Dawn, my goal is to retire from MINET. I've actually retired once before at a very young age. I was very opportunity. I'm back in the workforce again. I found a place that I would consider retiring from. MINET is an outstanding company, and it has an outstanding opportunity to literally put itself on the map in this area and beyond. The other thing I'd like to do is, the IT staff, to be honest with you, over the last few years have had a few hiccups and bumps with previous personnel. The one thing that I want to stress is we need to recognize merit where merit is due. Don and Marilyn have done an outstanding job promoting these guys, letting them know how important they are. I have continued that. But I think maybe every now and then it might behoove that if a board member or two would show up in the IT department and let these guys know that we recognize you're doing a good job. If we're messing up, let us know, okay? We have no problem with that. But we would like every now and then, I think it might behoove them for somebody to just come in and say, hey, you guys are doing a good job, thank you very much. And I think that goes much further than any raise or anything would go at this particular point.
Or they might say in conjunction with.
You know, they absolutely might, but, you know, when I sat down with them, I was very impressed that they were sticking with MINET through the tough times. I've been in situations like this, and I've basically seen guys that will walk and bail even though they say they're dedicated. But these gentlemen are absolutely dedicated, and I will stand behind them 100%. I would just like the board to do the same at this time. Now, a couple things I want to touch on about the profitability of the data center. On the 24th of this month, we have the state of Oregon coming in. We are meeting with their chief information officer and their deputy chief information officer to begin talks to see how MINET can provide services to the state of Oregon. This is a very important meeting, and we're excited about it. The other meeting that we have in December is we are meeting with the DOD, and several government departments will be coming in and representative to look at MINET about offering them data storage services. I've worked with these individual departments before. I've asked these contacts to come in, and I believe MINET can offer them the services that the federal government needs, and I want a piece of that budget that they have this year, and I would hope for the support and backup of the board in that endeavor. I would imagine they will eventually want to come in, meet, give their presentation after they are done with MINET, and I just want to make the board aware of that, and MINET is on its way to definitely becoming a powerhouse in this area and beyond. We're very proud of what we accomplished. We know it's been a pain in the butt to subscribers, but that time is over, and MINET is on a new leg now. We have a saying at MINET, it is connect, respect, and protect, and that will be our mantra from this point forward, period, in IT. I thank you for your time, and if there's any questions.
Any questions, comments?
One, a lot of dollar figures there. Has there been any analysis of what the monthly savings going forward would be?
I'm working on that right now.
I have that as a note to make that available at the upcoming meetings, that what does all this add up to?
It's just FYI.
Well,
It's just kind of an example of how they do it.
Well,
Does
it
that-
could add up to a new employee.
Absolutely. MINET, working with management has been outstanding these last couple of months, getting costs under control and finding ways that we can save a huge amount of money. And it's not that anybody was doing anything wrong, it's just getting those operating procedures in place and getting the mindset that, hey, we don't have to stick with these vendors. Let's face it, MINET was being held hostage by some of its vendors. It didn't have a choice. Now it does. And we have put those vendors on notice, and they are finding out, work with us, or we'll go other places. And we have. We have dropped some of those vendors, and I guarantee you they are regretting that loss of income at this point.
I had one more. You talked about making the data center a profit center.
Yes, sir.
And you talked about putting that information out on blogs. So is that kind of is that the new way to advertise, I guess, or?
Well,
or
for
do you get somebody
gentlemen in
to-
my position, we stay in touch on back ends. We don't go to those front websites or Twitters. We belong to IT associations, boards, and groups, and like the board of MINET, we have our meetings once a month, or we get together every couple of months. We discuss what's going on out in the industry. Anybody discusses anything new. But the opportunity it gives us is each one of us can actually say, okay, this is what my company is doing at this point. It is not strictly, nope, you can't say anything, this is a private forum. This is what these forums are for. And I religiously cruise them, talk to them, and sign up for them, and it is one of the best ways to let other IT directors and executives know that MINET is here, we're available, and we're ready to do business with you.
Kind of
Is that
specialized
the
market. That's good.
Tinfoil Hat Club?
Yes, so we have a tinfoil hat club.
To make sure.
What's wrong with that?
Every time. And no, we don't sit in cornfields, but every now and
But
then
you
we
do
get,
go to Area 51, I see.
actually, yes, sir.
I get it through my fillings.
I can almost keep them laughing here.
Any other questions?
I just want to throw out just a comment. I think this is great. It's a great presentation. It's nice that we're actually, one, getting our systems in place, but then a huge ball forward is, actually being able to really make money off of this, actually doing it properly. The other one, separate comment, would be with the data centers, the various things, we start talking capability equipment, extra staff. I like to do something innovative for MINET and actually make sure before we sign people on contracts that we actually make money. That'd be kind of a cool idea. Not a former practice of the company, but, yeah, because, well, and frankly, just in this case, I think we're on top of it, but in the past, we would have said, hey, we like you, and we would have signed them on. Then somebody would have said, oh, we need to buy all these extra pieces of equipment.
I
Oh,
agree
need
with
another
you.
staff person, and then all of a sudden.
100%, which is why we've done what we've done. Don can attest, I do not like waste, which is why when I see a piece of equipment saying, okay, this needs to be recycled. No, let's get it on the bench, open the thing up, and let's find out if it's a piece of that device or if it's all of that device. The numbers that we have in this report are real numbers, period. These are based on what was spent previously, and we have knocked that out now. So there is not going to be $78,000 spent on cable boxes anymore. It is just not going to happen. I will not allow it. I am a very tight miser in my budget. If they tell me this is what you have,
I think my comment was more directed to just these new opportunities, making sure they actually met before we do them.
everything
Yeah,
gets
but the
vetted.
back end is important too.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm
Yeah,
talking that side, those, and
100%
yes, there's a certain
on that.
amount of positioning, and you have to see how it goes, but, I mean, I'm sorry, back in the day, we would have signed a contract for $50,000, it took us $80,000 to maintain.
Mhm.
You know, so.
He actually dances when he saves over $10,000.
That needs to go on
Scott,
YouTube.
let me take that as a segue into just a real quick report from me. I won't get
Okay.
into it because we're already at 9:40.
Yeah.
And I was going to talk to you about penetration rates and all of that. And most of you have been exposed to new calculations that we feel confident are accurate and apply directly to what MINET has available to it in its core business. And if you don't have it, we'll provide it to you. What is alarming is that our core business is not going to take MINET to where it needs to be. It just ain't going to happen. And based on some of what Mark was saying and an awful lot on what Brian was saying, we are taking deliberate and consistent but cautious steps to the end game that MINET can provide to be not only self-supporting, but to be a profit center for the cities. Okay? You know, I think you'll all remember when I first got here, I picked up these rocks and I was twisting them and running them through fingers, and we found an awful lot of money, and Brian's been very successful at finding an awful lot more. But when Mark and I sit down without anybody else in my office and lock the door and start crunching the numbers, I still don't like the end result. We've just got to find the resources to bring it in here, and I think we have the tools to do it. So I'll make that my report, in essence of time. If that's okay with you all.
Sure. So then the next one up, if we move to 5, we had the purchase service mall and a couple project items there.
I would say let's dump those. Or push those to the next meeting would be my suggestion. I think Marilyn, what needs to be done here?
The Finance Committee is working somewhat on the purchase service model, and we're kind of putting that on treading water right now. The outline of the project and expansion plan, you heard a lot of it from Brian. We are working with Nancy Jesuel again to talk about grant writing, because frankly, we would love to use other people's money for things. And to do that, we have to have a good, solid core of what a grant would look like. And so we need to have at least someone create a template for us that we can use in other places, because there's FCC money, there's Department of Agriculture money, but we need to have the right words to put on the paper to be able to entice the grantors. And the letter to subscribers, that I believe is in your packet, and it's what we're considering sending with the December bill, just to reassure folks that things are going in the direction that they need to go. And we were also looking for your blessing on other options for delivery, which would include through all the available electronic media, and also a letter in the Itemizer Observer. And if you have no objection to that, we'll put it out every place that we can put it out.
Yeah. I do have a comment.
Please.
I'd be concerned with the first part of how strongly we hit on not doing a good job.
Yeah.
I think.
We're kind of inviting, I agree.
I think those should be backed down a little bit. I think a little bit more, kind of like my prior comments in the newspaper, it's like, yeah, we were operating our system, we were not doing exactly everything that we needed, we've got it all fixed now, but you're really advertising something a lot of people aren't really aware of.
Okay.
And I think that the tough thing is what happens when people consume information, particularly newspaper, they see the first thing, and the rest of it doesn't necessarily mean anything. So if you say, we weren't doing it very well, but it's all corrected now, all they're gonna see is,
We didn't do it very well.
yeah, so if that could be just, the rest of it's great. I think it really says you're proactive, you're doing all these things, and just, I think, but it's more like, yeah, we were operating at a okey-dokey level, now we're awesome.
Is a rewrite and send to the board via email for approval okay?
You know, it might be that, that's fine with me, to that specific question, but to piggyback on you, Scott, an approach might be, you know, and I don't know whether it's all accurate exactly or not, you have to vet the whole concept, but, you know, with improved management, with improved scrutiny, with a more professional business approach, we've discovered that, you know, we're uncovering things that need to be remediated, and sometimes that remediation is a little difficult, but we're doing that, and away we go. So you start out with, while we've got some issues that are being resolved, it's not like, Jesus, what a mess. But hey, thank God we've got a professional staff, we've got.
I think most of the dregs there, so.
Yeah.
What kind of timing?
If we're deciding to do this, and I have mixed emotions whether to invite complaints, because you take the chance of doing that with something like this. But if we're gonna do it, I lean that way to do it. I wanna get it in the December 1 bill and everything right about that same time. So we need to get it to you.
So why don't you send
like
it out
now.
to us, you tell us when you need comments back, and I'd throw out, so we don't have 6 people having a group project, you know, be pretty judicious with the comments. If something's really kind of glaring, we don't need to worry about semantics and commas and.
You'll have something before the end of the day today.
Yeah, and just if something's critical, let's
So
note that.
is it gonna be an edited format, like a Word document?
It will be in a Word document, so you can make comments should you wish to.
Okay, so then it looks like the remainder of the items on 5 will then move to a subsequent board meeting? Yeah. Okay.
You know, when those, one of the things, and I'm not gonna, but I read the information provided here on the, you know, both the purchase service model and the expansion plan. That was just a rough sort of a deal, and there are tons of more additional information that would be helpful before we can really have a discussion about that.
Well,
So I'm glad to hear that it's being pushed back.
And it's my expectation that when it's been, what we're asking you to truly consider with specifics, that the finance committee's gonna vet it, and the finance committee is actually gonna bring it to you at one of our board meetings. We need to get it through the bean counter approval, so that we have the specifics that get analysis, so we can bring it to you to say, yeah, this is probably the direction we wanna go. Does that make sense or no?
No, it doesn't, because
Okay.
the finance committee could do all of those things that you talk about, but isn't that your presentation to make? I mean, if
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're presenting this as a new business direction, that doesn't come from a subcommittee of this group, it comes from the,
Let me rephrase it then, John. For me to make that presentation, I prefer it to be vetted by the
Absolutely.
finance committee
yeah,
first.
that's some semantics, yeah.
And you don't have to
Very
answer
fair.
right now, but just for me to flag, I was thinking through the penetration rates with the purchase service model, so just the Wi-Fi, what is the benefit of that?
Right.
And when I look at that, it sounds like between us competitors, there's the people that don't want internet service or can't afford it. We've covered every home and business in town has internet service. If anybody's out with their cell phone, they have internet service. So I'm trying to figure out what the benefit of us blanketing the whole town with the Wi-Fi network is.
I have the same.
Because I could really see it more if we were a really grossly underserved area, an area where no one can afford, and so we offer a low-cost option, which we already do in a different form. That would seem to make sense, but I'm not getting what we don't have a digital divide here, so I'm not sure, core level what the benefit is.
I hear you, Scott.
Okay, so why don't we move those off next meeting? And if we go to 6, we had election of an appointment of a board president. And so what that was triggered by, David Klein moving to an ex officio position. He was the president, and I was the vice president, so now we've got a gap there. And then some potential options. One would be that we've got the IGA actually states that Independence does it for 2 years and one does it for 2 years, and invert president and vice president. So we're in an area that just isn't addressed, by the IGA. So the options that I think I threw out before was, one, independence, plugs in somebody else, and then you're the president for the remainder of up to next July. The other one, by agreement of the two cities, because we'd be altering kind of the IGA, I could step in early, essentially, and just cover the next 7 months and then take on my normal cycle. The kind of goofier one is we could not do anything and then just I show up at the meeting and there's no president, so I take it. So just some druthers. So I think, and maybe you lead out as the independence folks, because obviously if you'd like to keep the slot, then it's yours for the keeping. So just however we'll approach it, we need to formalize, and then we need to backfill a vice president if we had a shift of some sort.
Just, to me, it doesn't matter, because all we need is somebody to run the meetings. It could be in any one of those forums. Frankly, on my side, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but.
Well, we can also say if the president slot's being operated properly, your statement's very correct.
Unless somebody wants to nominate somebody.
Yeah, that's the other one. I guess it's open. Heck, Monmouth people could pick on an independence person if you want. So really just, is there a desire to?
Well, from outside of this meeting, it's going to be looked at as a balance of powers. So probably should be one of us three.
It's probably the easiest.
Smartest.
Well, it seems like there's less modification of the IGA.
There really is, because like I said,
Exactly.
if I slot it in early, we'd really need to at least have a write-off from the two cities that that was okay.
Sure.
If an independence person takes it for the next 7 months, then we just do that, and then I just continue as vice president.
Sounds good to me.
What?
Anybody
We haven't
raise their hand?
You three go in the kitchen and fight.
We're gonna fight over who doesn't want it.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll make a motion
Yeah.
that we appoint you as an interim president until you take over with your new baton next July. And then at that point, we can elect a new VP.
Okay.
That sounds different than what you said before.
Well, what I said before is I frankly don't care, but I want to go home. And that seems to be the most sensible.
Yeah.
And as interim, that would mean that the IGA is still in.
Intact. Then, like I said, we just not need write-off from the two cities. This is okay to fill a gap. There's a sub-note there that we still would need an independence person as a vice president. So we need to kind of package that.
Somebody has to have a role. Somebody from independence needs a role.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true, too.
Yeah. So if you want to go that way, we could make that a motion and have you kind of go in early. One person would need to be from independence as the vice president, and then we would get that ratified by the two city councils.
So, can we make a motion here then?
Yeah.
Okay, I would move that you remain as interim president of this body till next July. And as vice president, I would, I don't know, if this could be the same motion, but I would ask Jerry Hoffman. You are both working on the IGA and policy documents, and maybe that would be two people that should do it as president and vice president. So I would make a motion that you're president interim, 7 months, and you are vice president.
Second.
Anything else? Okay. And all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Okay, so we'll do that, so we'll operate that way, then I'll get some notes off to the council so we can, everybody, okey-dokey that. Be sure all the board. Okay, very good.
Scott, or just for our edification, are you putting the notes out to the independence council as well?
Oh, yeah, both, because we have to have both right off, so I'll probably work up a little memo to acknowledge this and I'll figure out the mechanics of it. Yeah. Maybe under, well, let's see, because we got the policies, and frankly, let's just defer that. That's fine, I think with where we are, it's too jumping, so. The resolution, let's get that one in place if we can, because that's something that could come up, and we're ready to do it. That's one that could come up.
It's in the packet, isn't it, somewhere?
So the idea behind this is that we had a basic spending authority for the general manager, but then the discussion point was periodically you could have an emergency come up, and he needs to buy something, you know, an equipment failure, needs to buy something quick. We added a caveat onto it that says, you know, that go ahead and do it, but then report, like at the next available, you know, board meeting or by memo or something, just to say, hey, had to do this. And I'm not finding it in the packet.
It's page 16, front and back.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, okay.
There's no resolution number, you know what number it should be?
It will, if passed, it will be
There we go.
2015-02.
So, does anybody got any questions on that?
Just, I want to make sure that, because I had an objection to the seek approval on something that was already done, and I'm looking for, and then just, my suggestion was we go to a report to the group. I'm looking to see if.
Yeah, John, go down on 3, number 3. It talks about his ability to do it, and the
Oh, yeah.
last sentence is, in the event the executing official exercises authority, notification must be made to the board as soon as practical.
Yeah.
I think that was one change that got made,
Yeah.
the last one.
Yeah, okay, that's, I just hadn't gotten down to that point yet, but I think that's reasonable.
In other words, I'm concerned we have an executing official, that seems a little hard
Yeah,
for
that's
IT operation, but.
Pretty typical.
Okay, I move that we adopt resolution 2015-2.
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded, John Kerry. Any further comments, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Fairly smooth piece of legislation.
You got that. The Paul Evans thing, that I could probably defer. One question I would throw out, I think on maybe board discussion, else we can pick up next time, you know, you want to go, is the having Doug Dawson engaged to do our analysis. I wasn't tracking that one down because the board authorized that to take place.
Right, basically, I just want to make sure, I mean, we've provided roughly 2/3 of the information that he wants, and then the remaining third is an awful lot of financial minutia, but not anything that's going to kill us to provide.
So you're in process.
I wanted to validate, because I was questioned by the finance committee, whether or not you wish to continue with this report.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah,
just wanted to
I
make
mean,
sure,
I mean,
because of all the changes that had been occurring since that request went in.
Okay, I don't see any change.
I just wanted to
The
validate,
point of the
because it
report
is a
was-
significant amount, I'm not suggesting you
Right,
don't.
and I think you do have some interesting motion, because you're changing some cost structures while you're doing IT differently and everything, but I think it's still valid. I think the idea was we wanted that check, we wanted someone to give us some opinions on
Outside eyes.
marketing, sales, outside eyes. Now, timing is interesting. If we think for some reason the numbers are morphing a little bit, so what you hand Doug isn't exactly accurate, I could see a potential drop back a month or something, but we want the report, I think. We want the report done. That'd be only my concern, is if we're not gonna give accurate information to Doug just because we're changing practice.
I'm sorry, I'm not tracking with you that we would even be able to give him inaccurate information.
Well, I think that's why I'm on, why would we stop at this point? Because because the finance, what was the finance committee's concern? That we're,
Expense.
I'm sorry, what?
The expense, was the finance committee's expense?
They wanted, because of the changes that's been occurring on the board of directors itself, they asked me if I felt you were still confident that you wanted that report. And it had to do, I think the conversation came up because it had to do with the $7,000 that we're gonna end up spending on it.
oh, okay.
And
so
I was
just-
asked,
oh, okay, that's-
you know, what are we getting for that $7,000? And when I explained to them, they said, but does the board still want this as a result of the change? That was my interpretation.
Okay, and I understand the question. At a different level, we authorized it.
Fair enough.
And I'd say unless there's some sea change of something that happened in the meantime,
I don't see
you just
that
move
that's-
forward.
I get you, and
Yeah.
your point behind it as well.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's easy. Proceed. Okay, so do we need to do any, oh, I guess next meeting, that's a key one. So, and also they broadened the proposal to, you know, do you want to continue meeting monthly? Or do you think bi-monthly is okay? I can kind of argue that one either way, because if we were more in a mundane report, check in how we're doing, probably could do that every other month. But if we have things that
I don't know if we're ready for that yet.
I think we still have
I
some
think we get
things to
further
clear
and
out.
further
I think
down, yeah.
potentially that could happen. You know,
This has evolved a long ways, this board, from when I was on it, but that issue's been there for 10 years.
Yeah, and then one I'll throw out as an interesting one too is with, just kind of a thought to throw down is with these business opportunities and various things, you know, are we comfortable with staff proceeding and being held accountable? Or it's obviously, we can't do these things in public. You know, if we want to set up any kind of a loop, do we want like a small, like a 2-person subcommittee to assist with any kind of, you know, vetting or just, you know, double checking things before they go out? Because the tricky one we have to deal with is that we can't be having contract negotiations with companies at a board meeting. Yeah, but then the however comment is, how far out do we want to give the rope, you know, to staff to run with these things? So that's more of just a thing to throw out.
Well, that would suggest monthly meetings, certainly, minimally.
Maybe. But I guess I'd throw out.
Well, unless you have a subcommittee.
Yeah, in context, if we got down to kind of more mundane and we want to meet every other month, and then proposals come up, we just want a little double check on, and the subcommittee can take care of that.
Look, you know, I mean, you know, we didn't meet in October, and there was a rationale for that, so we did that, so we made that decision. I think what we didn't do is we didn't sort of establish, you know, like an emergency board, like the legislature has, but we could do that as we go out. We're not gonna meet, but should something come up, you know, you two got it.
Yeah, something, and
You
then
know, I mean,
one I'd throw out too, which I just had a thought while we were talking here, is, you know, some businesses, you'd be able to probably just directly make a contract and do that. If we're dealing with government entities, there's a potential that they're going to want an IGA with us.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's obviously highly public.
Well-
It would be, so it might be one thing to think about with the entities that you're dealing with, and how physically, if we had a service that made sense, how we would contract with them. And then what their needs
You
are.
can bet the first couple are gonna be IGA related.
Right, so at that point, so we kind of need to know what we're, because so in that case, especially if they're fairly substantial, that's going to come to the board directly. And then another tier, though, would be businesses and private parties that you more than likely could just do directly, and then that wouldn't necessarily need to come to the board.
You need to report back to make sure the board understands that that's been done.
Well, we could always look at it the other way, the way we've been functioning now. We just have our monthly meeting arranged, and then if there's nothing to do, we can cancel the meeting. We've done
Yeah.
it in July,
But-
we did it in October.
But Scott, anything coming down the pipe like that, I mean, that's not gonna happen, that's not gonna be an you know, walk in, we gotta have this tomorrow.
Oh, no, and I think for a lot of it's just that level of what board involvement do we want if we're going off in a new direction? You know, are we okay just saying,
Yeah.
staff, take
Is
care
there
of
a
it, and
threshold?
we sure hope you make money? Or does the board want to look at something and go, ask some questions before?
Well, there might be,
something gets signed off?
some thresholds that we can discuss.
I think that's something we need to think about, because we're in kind of a new territory.
Right.
And unfortunately, my ghost in this area is our previous forays, which I know that was under previous leadership, but I think in some ways, unfortunately, even if we were okay with the Don staff running with something, if something doesn't go quite right, it will still come back to the board. Because then someone will say, well, why weren't you guys checking?
We can build some parameters.
Do you want
I
that
think-
as an agenda
I
item
think
for
so. I think
December?
we need to broadly think about what these things might look like, and then maybe set some, you know, some hierarchies in there.
Yeah.
And for me, it's gonna be, I want really staff driving things, and really being the lead out. Where it gets interesting though is like cost. So like when, you know, it's like, oh, yeah, we got this great client, we're gonna make $200,000 a year off them, but I have to go buy a $100,000 piece of equipment. That obviously affects the budget and the city's contributions, and I think stuff like that would be reasonable to have the board take a look at. And frankly, in some cases, let us jump in on being accountable if it goes wrong or goes good.
Do you have a feeling too on the IGA as just a contracted service provider? And would we have to be an IGA? Is there a benefit to either way?
And see, I don't know.
And I don't, because if we're providing a service as a service provider, is there just a strict benefit to doing it contractually and not IGA. A lot more work IGA.
Yeah, and that's what I wonder, and I think the
Yeah, I
issue
don't
is
know.
gonna be on the recipient side, what they're requiring.
What they're gonna
But I'm guessing, State of Oregon DAS could call up Dell right now and say, back up my computers. I guess they do.
Yeah.
And I guess it's an issue what they need to do.
Right.
And I had a situation differently than this in a previous place I worked that, through an IGA, another entity can work directly with you. They don't have to go through a bidding process.
Right, right.
So the IGA was a direct route.
Well, one of the things I look at when this was first started back in 2004, trying to get an IGA with the cities of Monmouth, Independence, and Western Oregon University, and Darrell Silvernagle was the one leading that charge for Western Oregon. He couldn't make it happen. We were 12, 13 months into trying to get an IGA, and it always went to Department of Justice or.
Yeah, that's where everything dies.
And it died. I mean, well, it didn't die. Another attorney would look at it and send it back
Yeah.
and say, you gotta change this.
No, I heard an interesting presentation the other day. They said basically the state of Oregon is run by the Department of Justice.
Yeah, no, I've heard that too.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's, I have a negative.
So maybe just a
IGA.
flag as an item
Well,
is maybe looking at what these contracts would look like, and then at what times we think maybe the board would need to, or we set parameters, and then you work within those parameters and go
Well,
forward.
it's my understanding that an IGA would only be required if we had someone who want to buy in, partner with us.
Not necessarily. See, the state of Oregon, Dallas right now, city of Dallas could say, we would like to contract with you, and what we're not sure is whether it's just a contract, or they would want to sign an IGA with MINET as two government entities.
Well-
And that's what we just don't know, and what people's preferences, if there's any legal issues,
Or what the benefits do.
yeah, for one or the
Well,
other.
and that would be one that would, but like, for example, some of the data center storage stuff, DOD, are they gonna, and it really, it's, do we want it, and do they want it, or do they require it? That's the, or could it just be contractual?
Right.
Right.
That's the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And what are the, I guess it boils down to what are the rules of IGA? Since you are a government entity, are the rules different if you contract as opposed to IGA? Maybe it's more beneficial to the receiver to have an IGA contract.
And it
Since
might be
you are a government
required on there.
entity. It might be required.
And then we could decide whether we want to require that of another governmental entity, or are we happy with the contract? And then, so therefore, it's on them to trigger the IGA as opposed to us saying, well, we could cut some of that out just if we felt like we could get it done contractual.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And it may,
Yeah.
other than the difficulty of creating an IGA, it may not make any difference. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think it's just something we need to sort through, and obviously we're getting positioned to be able to do these services, and just something we need to figure out.
Yeah, I need to ask this question, excuse my ignorance. Can we do business with another government entity while the contract/IGA is being worked out? Is that legal?
Well, would we do business with somebody without a contract?
Another state, another government?
I think his question's more general. Would you use in business with a commercial entity without a contract?
No, but I'm prepared to provide that contract at any given time. But I don't know that I'm prepared to do it with another government entity.
I know in
At least based on what I'm hearing here, I don't know what I don't know anymore.
Well, I guess I would rephrase it, if I'm an individual and I call up MINET and say, can I have service? You're not gonna give me service until I sign an agreement.
Right.
So you sound like you're saying you're gonna start delivering service
Well,
before you have.
let's use an example. Let's say the state of Oregon does say, we're gonna hand off some traffic to you, and we want you to transport it for us. And we can come to a conclusion on what we're gonna charge them and how they're gonna pay us, right? But then, my question is, can we start that service with them because they're another government entity without developing what I heard you say, a 13-month process of getting the contract in place?
Depends, but it.
And I would really guess, they're not gonna start using us unless they have an agreement in place on their end. I don't know where that situation will come up, Don, I'm not.
Okay, all right, maybe I'm.
Well, where it could come up is where, we would simply require a contract to begin to provide services.
They-
They would be the ones that would say, well, the contract's not good enough for us.
Until we go to
And-
justice.
Until we get this vetted by justice.
But justice, the problem with justice is they always say no until they understand the process what we're doing. When I was in civil rights, we had one attorney we go to every time because he understood how civil rights and government works. And everybody else would say no, but he'd go, oh, I understand that. And that's the issue.
And I guess, Don, there's lots of iterations here, but one I would be concerned on that level is if they said, hey, we have a mechanism that we can start in immediately, but then we got this long process to go through the chain. If we have built in things to take care of them, and then 3 months later they go, oh, yeah, they're gonna shut this thing down, so we're out.
Right.
And then you're sitting there with stranded investment.
Why don't we see what the two city attorneys' opinion would be on this? Because the two cities could throw their issues.
No, we shouldn't be involved. No, the city shouldn't be involved. Yeah, we're not-
So if he writes a contract with another government entity, neither city is going to object?
That's for the board to
Yeah.
make the decision on,
Yeah.
I think-
unless it's an IGA.
I think we can solve this by simply saying, what kind of an agreement are we willing to do with just simply a contract? And what rises to the level of requiring an intergovernmental agreement? And hopefully, the majority of what we do is contractual, without that. And then we would be at the mercy of who we're contracting with as to the level of sophistication of an intergovernmental agreement. So I think we can decide how we want to do business, but we'll react to others.
Yeah, you got there. And I'd say, Don, just maybe some research on that would be, well, Brian might have some contacts, people he can talk to. The other one would be, you've been talking to people, ask them, what's their practice? How can they use us? How can they utilize us, and what kind of form they would need? But I think the main idea, let's get it all positioned, because we also don't want to be where we actually have a really good opportunity and then we're not ready. And then
Well,
we're fussing
that's
on
my
our,
concern.
you know.
The very last thing that you stated, that's my concern.
Well, to Scott's point, so let's
Let's
assume
get
we
it
can
figured
get
out.
something going here. What are we gonna need to be ready to do to make it work?
Yeah, and maybe, Don, maybe there's a broader, you guys are looking at equipment, procedures, staffing, things. Maybe the thing that hasn't been thrown in the mix yet is what authority? What legal agreement, what do we need in place to provide that service? And I've had a few times in my life that I jumped out ahead of the curve and had a really great program ready to go and it was illegal.
No.
Did that stop you?
Actually, yeah, in that one case.
It's easy to apologize and ask for
Well, you're
it.
singing to the choir.
He's not worrying about that.
I'm kind of like city code for that.
Details, details.
So are we meeting next month,
I think it would be good.
Yeah,
I think
we
so.
got it.
17th?
We got things already, so.
17th?
I think we had that benchmarked.
Okay.
Yes.
Everything's sound good to me on 17th.
Yep.
And we already have some items built, and obviously things might come up too. So, anything else?
We would adjourn.
Motion second. All in
Can I put
favor?
these in the freezer for next month?
You're gonna eat them. You're gonna take them home in your freezer.
No, I'm gonna
I
ask
got
Scott
to find
to
you
staff.
guys some more.
Oh,
because
we'll use them.
IGA stuff. I'm not gonna take any more board time. I'm not comfortable that I know what the hell I'm doing, and I gotta know what I'm doing, because if their opportunity comes along, I want to be able to jump all the hell over it.
Well, right.
Yeah, so let's get that in place. And I can say Mike's comment, he made a couple comments today that were, worth something, but, and,
I didn't.
high praise.
Perhaps they're in the notes.
Yeah, Don, if you need,
Remember that,
one,
Marilyn. He made some
Chad
good comments.
potentially, but if contract stuff isn't his forte, then Lane, our attorney's really good, and that'd be fine. But I think Chad can, because his firm's a full charge firm, they do city attorney services, and they should know, but you can check there. If not, we can use Lane, and he's done a lot of good work for us getting ourselves in order, so.
Our city attorney would be.
Either one's gonna be able to take care of it, so
Yeah.
either one or Chad.
Okay, on a closing issue, what about this issue with the contract with Cable Houston? As far as I can see, there is no contract involved.
So that was a discussion. We don't know if we actually have an actual agreement with Cable Houston for the services. we're
Well, as I
getting.
understand, the one that Don received from Cable Houston was an unsigned to Phil Garrett.
This is what Cable Houston sent me,
That's what they're basing their service
and it's to Phil Garrett in 2005.
on. So it should be reviewed
So
anyway.
can we direct the general manager
Why
to?
don't we direct the general manager
Hey,
to,
handle it.
Well, I already did it.
Okay.
I told Chad, this is unacceptable.
yeah, so
Okay, good.
we'll get a new active agreement and,
What I don't understand, I'm jumping subjects, I'm jumping back to the idea again, is what I don't understand is, what I need clarification on is it's supposed to be a whole hell of a lot easier to do business between governments than between government and a private entity, because the contracts require so much vetting,
Right, and
okay? At the DOD.
right.
And I, all for the last 2 years, been under the assumption that an IGA is something we can stamp out like overnight, and we do business.
I think it's individual
it's prob-
IGAs
it's
are gonna
probably-
be different. You're
it's
gonna have
prob- yeah.
two that are both signed off, and they're like, yep, let's do this, and then you're gonna have one where they have to sell
There's a
it.
pre-existing trust level that doesn't have to be vetted by a third party.
And that's like I
government
threw out my
agency.
example, that could be the case. I think we just want to make sure.
Yeah, that's kind of what I.
Well, the other issue with contracting with state government is competitive bidding.
Well, we do avoid that, right? In an IGA environment?
Government,
Maybe.
no, government to government can be non-bid.
Yeah, and then that's the question. So that's where those little loops and twists come in, because it could be theoretically an IGA would be direct. They could just call us and say, hey, do you want to do it? If they're going out and just contracting, then we're in the hopper with every other vendor. And so that's what we need to clarify, and this is a real key legal issue, and particularly for venturing into new territory, we need to be clean.
Definitely.
I'll probably be pestering many of you.
Yep, we can do that.
very quickly.
So,
There's a
previously
motion.
had a motion.
There's a motion on the floor.
All in
To
favor?
adjourn?
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye, you're adjourned.
Hey, you guys want to go hang out at the MINET board, or I mean the MINET office tomorrow? Brian said we should visit.
I got some clarification I gotta get after.
How about
all
you?
that.
We're having trouble with our lock system, so if you come,